Вітаємо на програмі «Контакт» головного керівника фірми Black Iron, яка більше $90 мільйонів заінвестувала в Україну та готова до подальшої праці і розбудови України.
Дякую дуже, пані Діано. Вітаємо, дорогі глядачі. Ми сьогодні тут в домі Black Iron в Торонті, в головних бюрах. І якраз тепер матимемо нагоду поговорити із так званим CEO Matt Simpson. So Matt, thank you very much for inviting us here to be with you to talk about not just iron ore and black iron, but for the state of investment, let's say if we can, for Ukraine these days. It's a time of war, very difficult for Ukraine, for all of us, and I'm sure for you as an investor. But I would like to point out a statement that was made in your name at the start of the Rebuild Ukraine Business Conference that just happened here in Toronto at the King Edward Hotel. It says, "We believe in Ukraine's victory and are determined to implement the Shimanskivske iron ore project, aiming to be one of the most substantial and attractive foreign investment ventures for Ukraine. Despite the project's implementation challenges, including Russian aggression, our company is steadfast in progressing towards our goal." So Matt Simpson, those words attributed to you. On one hand, that makes us believe that you believe in Ukraine. And on the other hand, it gives us an opportunity to maybe understand a little bit more the general business environment, and even before that, iron ore, black iron. What is your investment in Ukraine, and what is the future for iron ore on a global scale?
Yeah, so Yuri, thank you for having me on the show. I very much do believe in the future of Ukraine, and after this war, hope that the country really prospers and that people have a much higher standard of living coming out of it. Black Iron is developing a greenfield, which just means brand new iron ore project in KONTAKT Ukraine, which is pretty much in the center of the country where most of the iron ore mining originally occurred for the entire Soviet Union. There's actually 7 operating iron ore mines within about 40 kilometers of us. And what makes the project, I think, really important for the rebuilding is that there's going to be probably the biggest infrastructure project ever of our lifetime that we'll see in the rebuilding of Ukraine. And that's going to require a tremendous amount of steel. And the key input to make steel is iron ore. And the reason that Black Iron is developing this project in Ukraine is that iron ore is available all over the world. In order for it to be economic, what you really need is proximity to rail, port, power, and skilled labor. And this project has it all. We're surrounded by the government-owned railway, high voltage power lines. There's 5 ports within 250 to 450 kilometers. And there's a very highly skilled labor force in the local city where we'd attract our employees.
Can we switch over to the idea brought up at Rebuild Ukraine globally? I mean, there's a war going on in Ukraine, and here already people are talking about rebuilding it. How realistic is that? Don't you have to get rid of the war or win it first? And then the other question that was brought up is that the rebuilding should be to modern standards as opposed to rebuilding to what was there before. What is your insight into that kind of a question?
Yeah, look, my personal view is with any large infrastructure project, realistically, the investments are not going to be made until there's peace. And it's simply because investors are quite concerned that they don't want to put $500 million into a project like ours only for it to get hit by a missile or stolen by Russian forces. So it is important that there's sustained peace in the country for those investments to occur. But I do think once there is peace that the investments will occur quite rapidly as long as we can cut through some of the normal bureaucracy that it takes to get projects permitted and to get boots on the ground and actually start construction.
Now, before we get to the process for rebuilding, just to give us a little bit of perspective of what the damage the war has done to your project or to your investment, what would you say was the value of your project before you started Ukraine, and what would be the current evaluation?
Yeah, so we've actually raised about $90 million US to bring this project to its current near construction ready state. And just prior to the war breaking out, we actually raised about $11 million at 40 cents a share. And today our company trades at 6 cents a share. So to give you an idea, it was a massive destruction of shareholder value when the war broke out. Probably about 8-time loss.
Now, Meanwhile, you still have a vision for a positive result here. I think there's talk about you having halo-type investors that will, I'm sure, brighten up the picture. Could you speak a little bit about how that affects the market and your future?
Yes, look, I think it's really important that companies like ourselves that have advanced their project to such a very construction-ready state are supported by Ukraine's government, because we're going to be the first quick adapters in country. And in our case, we do have some very notable investors. As we've already publicly disclosed, Cargill is interested in acquiring all of the offtake, which just means to purchase all of the iron ore that we would produce in this project in exchange for making a $75 million investment. And we have other very well notable investors. And I think that's important because once we build this project, especially with investors that are well known around the world, it's going to provide greater comfort to other foreign investors that if they can be successful, we can be successful also.
Now, Matt, as a CEO of a major company, looking at things from a Canadian perspective, where is Ukraine in terms of its process to allow for businesses like you to actually invest and grow and flourish? It seems intuitively, I'm sensing that Ukraine has kind of a built-in hold-back heritage. How true is that? And if true, how does one get rid of that?
Yeah, look, I'd say a lot has changed since we started this project in 2011. When we first came into the country, we quickly learned that business and government were pretty much one and the same, and that if you didn't find a local partner, your chances of success were slim to none. So we found that local partner, looked to move the project forward when unfortunately Russia first came into the eastern part of Ukraine, and that caused us to put our project on hold and divest that local investor. Moving forward to today, I think the government is much more agnostic from business. You truly have a more democratic government. However, you still have a lot of the bureaucratic issues that have hampered the country in the past. One really good step the government made about 2 years ago, just prior to the war starting, is to put in place a special investment agreement, or what's more commonly known as the investment nanny law. And the thinking behind this is very good. The idea is that you'll get a senior government employee that will help expedite your project through all the different agencies within government to get your permitting done, that you'll freeze the current tax and royalty rates. You have certainty as an investor that the government's not all of a sudden after the war going to double or triple the tax rates, which would all of a sudden destroy your investment. It also allows you to have exemptions on the import of any duty for equipment that's purchased and brought into the country to build. And in our case, most importantly, it allows you to also secure government land transfer and a support guarantee, which can be used to secure political risk insurance from the likes of the World Bank.
Well, now everything you've said is sort of shines a positive light on the intentions now of Ukraine in terms of fostering and inviting investment. But you have also submitted in July a proposal, and where are we with that proposal towards government, and how is government responding? Obviously, taking into consideration there's a war going on, and is that a valid explanation for what it seems to me to be a delay?
Yeah, so look, I think you have two groups of people in Ukraine. So simplistically, you have those that are involved in fighting the war, which is the most important thing happening in the country. But those that are not fighting the war should really be focused on attracting investment to the country. And you're correct, we spent almost a year pulling together the extensive documentation required to apply for this special investment agreement. Almost 600 pages of documentation had to be pulled together. We submitted it to the Ministry of Economy in July and have not received feedback yet. And as an investor, it's quite frustrating, because what I think is extremely important for the government right now is to ensure they embrace the investors that are banging on their door. And by brace them, Yuri, I really mean that they need to give timely feedback. They need to make sure that those investors are being supported and being welcomed, because it's not just words, it's actions. Let's get this binding contract in place that's going to matter.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for explaining things. I think there's both hope and trepidation on the horizon, and we're happy to have you explain the situation. Maybe you're inspiring us to make a series out of this. So, дорогі глядачі, це був пан Matt Simpson, CEO Black Iron, фірма, яка має великий вклад в Україну. Ми продовжимо розмову відразу після наступних реклам.